Hi guys, so this is going to be the first video in a series where we are working with the potatoes we grew this summer in the garden. We harvested well over 100 pounds and they have started to grow eyes. We don't have a great cold storage option, so it's not going to last us all winter. So we want to make sure that we're going to be able to go ahead and use them in recipes or other preservation methods, or we're going to plant some of them out in the garden in a few weeks. And those should overwinter and then grow next spring. It's worked for me 2 years in a row. So really excited about that. So today we are going to make my family's favorite shepherd's pie or cottage pie because we're going to use ground beef for that. It's absolutely delicious, super easy to make, and it just is so comforting. If we have leftover mashed potatoes, which we should, we're also going to go ahead and freeze those in little pucks, put them in the freezer, and then we can just pop those out of the freezer for a meal. 2 minutes, we've got fresh mashed potatoes. At least it tastes like that. So I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. My name is Kim, and let's get started. So for the cottage pie, or we always called it shepherd's pie. When I googled it, it said shepherd's pie is lamb, cottage pie is beef. So honestly, you can make it with whatever you would like. There are probably about 1,020,000 zillion different ways to make this. It is basically just potatoes, beef, veggies, some broth, or gravy, and a little bit of butter, which makes it all great. And it just goes together. It's so easy and it's wonderful. So we're going to use some ground beef. I did brown this a little while ago. I put it in the freezer. I did brown it with onion, garlic powder, and some fresh onion. We will heat this up. We will make a gravy to go with it using beef broth that I made last fall. Some butter spray for the pan because we will bake this once we're finished. We'll need some salt, some black pepper. If we were going to ground the beef from scratch, I would use a fresh onion, but that's already done. Some tapioca starch here to thicken the gravy, onion powder and garlic powder. Again, if we needed it, we probably don't, but I will need to refill these because they're almost empty. We have plenty more of this. If you watch my garlic video, I have so much garlic powder. I'll never run out. Everybody's getting it for Christmas. So anyway, we will need salt and pepper. We will also need some butter and milk, which is still in the refrigerator. For the potatoes, we are going to go ahead and use the Yukon Gold potatoes. They're a good boiling potato. And we're going to go ahead and leave the skins on. One, because it's easier and it's faster. You've got to do that, especially in the weeknights. But also a lot of the nutrient value in a potato is actually contained in the skin. So a lot of fiber, also a lot of vitamins and minerals. So we're going to go ahead and use those, just mash them up. And if you don't like them, if you don't like skin in their mashed potatoes, go ahead and peel them, up to you. But we always just use the skins in them, especially for these thinner skinned potatoes like the Yukon Gold or the red Lesotho, the red Norland potatoes. Those thinner skinned ones are really good just to put the skin in. So let's get these cut up. For equipment, I have a cutting board, a couple of knives, a pot full of water, strainer, something to mix the tapioca starch in. It could just be a coffee mug. We'll use about 2 tablespoons of tapioca starch. I've also got a frying pan behind me to heat up the beef. We got a saucepan to make the broth, and then we have another pan to cook the potatoes, which is already just about boiling. So let me get the camera reset. We'll go ahead and chop this up. I have a pan full of water here because if we leave the potatoes exposed to the air, they will oxidize or turn brown. It doesn't make them dangerous to eat, it just makes them ugly. So we want to make pretty mashed potatoes. So let me get the camera reset and then we'll chop these up. I'm going to use this knife. I will use this one to cut off any bad spots. And I am going to stand up because it is just safer to be standing up instead of sitting down because I'm working in a downward manner. So we'll go ahead and just cut these. These are the beautiful, look at that, just gorgeous. And we want to have slices or little cuts that are about the same size so that they will all cook evenly. We'll just pop them in the water. So I'm going for about a 1/2 inch size piece, so just like that. It looks like I've got a bruise here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that first. Put that in the compost. And at this point, I don't care if they're the same shape. It just matters if they are approximately the same size. And if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Now here's one that's kind of gross looking, so we're going to cut that end off and see where we are. So inside we're good. Cut this end off too. So for the smaller areas where I think there's a problem, I'm going to use a smaller knife so I'm not losing as much of the potato. So sometimes you will get one that's going bad in the center, so we're just going to cut around that and see what we can get off of it that's good. As long as you have a clear margin, then you're good to go. And sometimes like a bad spot here and there that you won't see. That one is pretty bad, so I'm gonna just check that one. That's pretty gross. Alright, so let me clean this up for a second, and then we will rinse these off again, and then we will get them onto the stove. So I'm gonna have a colander. If I didn't mention it earlier, we also will need a hand mixer for this. Or you could use a manual mashed potato masher. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put these into the boiling water. And we're going to be very careful, especially since I am a klutz. Let's actually do this. Hopefully it all fits. And when we're going to be mixing these with a metal beater, I'm going to make sure to use a steel pan, not porcelain or not Teflon, because that would scratch it up really bad. Now we're going to be using this pan. It is oven safe, and we really want a taller pan for this because we're going to layer the items. Oh, I forgot corn. I need to get the corn out. So we're going to layer the meat, gravy, corn. Then you could actually, if you wanted to add peas, or you could add winter squash, and then we'll put the potatoes on the top once they're mashed. So we're going to go ahead and use this. Now I'm going to go ahead and start this pan here. And we're going to go ahead and get our hamburger warmed up. And probably what I may do actually is do this one meal or one pan like this, and then may do a few smaller freezer meals for later on. We also want to put a generous amount of salt in the potatoes while they are cooking. And with this recipe overall, it's going to be completely to taste, but I would say probably a good 4 tablespoons of salt in here, because the potatoes will absorb it while they're cooking, and it will make the whole thing taste a lot better. And it'll be a lot better than salting it afterward. Yeah, this is going to be a challenge because we're going to get a lot of run over. So we're going to watch this really close because it is going to boil over very easily. Once it starts to boil, we're going to turn the heat down so it's just boiling. And this will take probably about 20 minutes to cook to its soft point. Once the hamburger has warmed up, then we'll go ahead and start the gravy. For that, we will need the tapioca starch, salt, pepper, and the beef broth. And if you use canning jars, this is an amazing little gadget to open the jars up. I'm wondering if I should do 2 with all of this. I might go ahead and do 2. So we're going to go ahead and do 2 pints because it's better to have too much than not to have enough of it. And it really needs that gravy to make it moist and really delicious. Turn that down just a hair. I don't think I did any fresh onion. I can definitely smell the onion and garlic. The potatoes are just about up to boiling point, and we've gotten some browning, additional browning on the hamburger. And that'll add a little more umami, a little more depth of flavor to it. So that's pretty good. So we're going to turn this down just a hair, keeping an eye on it. I'm going to move this off and go ahead and get the gravy warming up. The potatoes are nearly done. I'm reheating the hamburger once more. And again, we're going to set that aside. I've already heated the broth. And then we're going to crank that up and get it really, really hot. And what I've got in here is 3 tablespoons, because I've got 2 quarts here, so it's about 1.5 to 2 tablespoons per pint. I have a quart in here because I have 2 pints. So I'm going to put just enough water in this, cold water, to dissolve it, but no more. But about 3 tablespoons of cornstarch or 3 tablespoons of tapioca starch. And just a little bit of water, and then we're going to stir it up to get it all dissolved. Okay, then I'm going to stir this very vigorously without causing any damage. We want to make sure we're stirring this while we pour this in there, or else it will curdle. Wow, that thickened fast. We're going to cook it for just a minute or 2. Make sure it's thick enough for what we need. If not, we could add a little bit more. We're going to go ahead and add just a little bit of salt. About a teaspoon, and then we're going to add some more pepper. I think I'm going to add just a teeny tiny bit more. And you want to make sure that it's completely dissolved before you put it into the hot liquid, and it has to be cold water. At least with cornstarch. That should do it. If you want, you can go ahead and do a little taste test. Just be sure not to burn yourself. It's good. Just enough salt. Okay, so we turn this off. Set it on the back. And then we're going to go ahead and dump the potatoes. Oops. And I do have the oven preheating to 375 degrees. So we're gonna be very careful because this is boiling hot. Always dump it away from yourself, and I also try to drain off as much of the water as I can before the potatoes start to go into the colander. That's good. There's not much water left. Make sure they're drained, and then we will pour them back into the pot. Phew. Facial. So for the mashed potatoes, we're going to use milk. You could also use evaporated milk. You could use whole milk. This is just a 2%. We're also going to use some butter. And plug the mixer in. And then we'll use the hand mixer as well. So for this, and again, I don't measure anything, I probably should, but we're probably going to use the entire stick of butter. But as far as milk, we do not want this to be super, super liquidy, because once we put this in the oven, it will loosen up a little bit. So we want fairly thick mashed potatoes. I will not add any more salt, but we're going to go ahead and add some of the milk. So now I'm getting a good mash to the potato. So when I'm adding milk, it's going to be just a little bit at a time, because you'll go from being too thick to way too thin really, really fast. Okay, that looks wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and add some pepper to it. And again, it's a matter of just to taste. And once you have experience doing this, you'll have an idea of what you need for pepper for the volume. We are done with the milk. That's probably enough pepper. Then we'll mix it one more time. So I'm going to start with some spray to make it easier to pull out and clean. And if you're using a pot, you want to make sure that it is oven safe. This does not have any plastic on it, so it's all metal. And it is rated for oven use. So the first thing I want to do is to put my hamburger in the bottom. Thinking we're going to have extra potatoes, but the hamburger, a little bit more burger. Alright, so we're going to just do one freezer meal. Like I said, I didn't measure this out, it was just what I had left. But we have some hamburger on the bottom, and then I've got frozen corn, so we're just going to put that on top. At this point, you could add peas, you could add carrots, you could add any kind of vegetable that you would like. We've always just used corn. Smooth that around. Now we are going to put our gravy on. Probably a little more than we needed, but it'll be good. Sure, smooth that around. And we're going to put the potatoes on top of it, so that will absorb some of the broth, some of the gravy. Okay, so let me clean off my spoon. So now we are going to just spoon some of the potatoes on. And you want to have a fairly nice layer. pan's a little big. Oh well, it'll work. But what I want is about maybe 2.5 inches of potato on top of the other filling. So this one I'm going to just let cool, and then we will bake it when we're ready to use it later. I'm going to put a little bit more on top of this one. Now if you wanted, you could add butter on top of it, but where we put a whole stick of butter in that, I'm not going to add any more butter. I'm going to put this in the oven for about 30 minutes at 375 degrees, or until the top of the potatoes is browned. But the corn will heat up with everything else, and with the gravy and meat already being warm, this won't take very long. So we'll pop this in the oven, and then we'll make our little potato pucks for the freezer. We got a fair bit of potato left. So what I'm going to do, I've got a large cookie scoop. I'm going to take a huge dollop, maybe 2, and then put them next to each other. Because what we're going to do is we're going to flash freeze these, which means we are just going to set this tray, once it cools completely, we'll set it into the freezer. Oops. They do need to be separate. But once these are completely cool, we'll set that into the freezer overnight. And then once we pull that back out, what we'll be able to do is take these off of this sheet and then just put them in a plastic bag. And then when we want to have basically fresh mashed potatoes, pop one out, pop it in the microwave for a minute or 2 till it's hot, depending on your microwave power. And you've got almost fresh mashed potatoes within like 2 minutes. It's wonderful. So I'm going to insert this in here, then we'll finish up the video. Shepherd's pie is absolutely wonderful. But these have frozen. It is the next morning. And we have big chunks of mashed potatoes. And again, you just take this out of the freezer, pop it in the microwave for however many you need for your meal. 1 to 2 minutes in the microwave on high, and they're just like fresh mashed potatoes. You could use the food saver and vacuum seal these, and they might last longer, but these should last easily 3 months in their freezer, just like this. And if mashed potatoes are this easy, they're not going to last for 3 months. Do you want to label it though? Mashed potato 1025. All right, so we'll get these back into the freezer, and then we'll enjoy these with meals as we go along. Now back to the regular video, to the amazingly fantastic shepherd's pie. There we go. I did put the broiler on for just a couple of minutes to brown it, so adding butter on top would help that brown faster. So what I would let this do now is go ahead and let it set for 4 or 5 minutes before serving it. But we're going to go ahead and give it a taste test. And just use a spoon, down, grab it. Oh, that looks so good. So delicious. All right, so let's give this a try. Absolutely delicious. So we're gonna have for dinner tonight. So there we go. This is absolutely delicious. You've got to try this, especially if you've got any extra potatoes. So anyway, thank you for joining me. There will be plenty more videos with the potatoes coming up. In the meantime, check out this video. Until the next time, happy gardening. Have a wonderful day, and bye.